Hello, my friends. I'm super excited to have you at today's Wednesday workshop where we're going to be talking about nurturing relationships. So with that, let me share my screen here for just a second. And before we get into today's workshop, next month's workshop is going to be on a different day because there was a conflict with the third Wednesday. So go to the website schooltohomeschool.com so you can see that change. It's going to be still in October, but on a different day. So check that out. Our topic will be narration, dictation, and copy work. And how do we do that with our kids? For those that are homeschooling, new to homeschooling, you may not have heard those terms. We'll be talking about what those are, and then we will also be practicing like this is how you do it and this is what it looks like. So I'm very excited to go over narration, dictation, copy work in October. And then November's workshop is also on a different day because the workshop falls on the week of Thanksgiving. So we're going to do it at the beginning of the month, and we're going to be discussing Christmas school, which is so fun. Anyway, so that's the next couple workshops coming up. But for today, let's get started with talking about nurturing relationships. So let me get this going. Okay, so first of all, I think something important is that one of the things that I didn't know when my kids were still in public school, when I was teaching in public school, is I didn't know the history of the education system. I didn't know some of the intentions of people. I didn't realize that teachers' colleges were not just set up to for academics, but it was a means of control of those that were running them, because they figured if they could teach specific values and, for the lack of a better term, indoctrination to the teachers in the colleges, that would then trickle down to the students. This is Elwood P. Cubberley, Stanford's Dean of Education in 1909, y'all. This is a long time ago, and this has been going on for a long time. Each year, the child is coming to belong more to the state and less to the parent. Their intention was to have that separation. John D. Rockefeller, we've said this before, he wanted a nation of thinkers, a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers. And the more that they could get children to rely more on the state and authority figures, and separate them from parents, the better. So there is some nefariousness going on, and just frankly, like greed. It's like, how can we get more workers and to help our bottom line? And so perhaps not everyone was nefarious, but there certainly was that element. And indeed, here we are in 2025, and we have seen a breakdown of the family. We've seen parents not as close, children not as close to the parents. Lots of hard things that we're seeing, and the public schooling doesn't help things. It makes matters worse. And so it's interesting because sometimes we think, I've seen lots of families in public schooling who are close to their kids and they keep their kids close. But it's hard when you have to compete with the public school system, with ideologies, and with time. I mean, just straight up time. They are there 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, for 9 months, for 13 years, right? It's hard to compete with that. And we as parents don't get the best parts of the day. We get the worst parts when our kids are in public school. So it's a blessing to be able to homeschool because it makes nurturing the relationship a little bit easier. Now, if you are in the public school system and your kids are there, and maybe that's not an option, or you're not interested in homeschooling, you absolutely should and can nurture the hearts of your kids. It just makes it a little bit tougher because of that time element is problematic because they're gone all day. But it's absolutely possible. So I don't want to give the impression that if you don't homeschool, you'll never be close to your kids. That's not true. Okay, so let's go into first, what is attachment, right? We have to have our kids attached to us. Well, there's two kinds. There's emotional connection. Attachment is a strong emotional bond, love, or feeling of closeness to someone or something. And then second, it's part of child development. And here it talks about in developmental psychology, attachment theory describes the deep emotional bond that forms between a child and their primary caregiver, which is crucial for the child's sense of safety and future relationships. So then the question is, and I'm pulling from the work of Dr. Gordon Neufeld, who is one of the world's foremost in attachment psychology, and Dr. Gabor Mate, and their work in attachment. And so they bring up a thing in their book, Hold On to Your Kids, this idea of parent versus peer orientation. I just want to go over this a little bit before we deep dive into what are some actual tangible things that we can do to keep our kids close or to bring them closer if they are not close. So this is from Dr. Gabor Mate. And the question becomes, like, with attachment, where do children go for emotional nurturing? So I'm going to put part of the quote that I'm going to read up here. This is from Dr. Gabor Mate. He says, let me give you the whole quote. This is just a line from the quote. The root of the problem is that children no longer look to adults for emotional support, the teaching of values, or the modeling of behavior. Peer orientation refers to the tendency of children and youth to look to their peers for direction, their sense of right and wrong, codes of conduct, and their very identity. Peer orientation undermines family cohesion. It sabotages healthy development and fosters an aggressive and prematurely sexualized youth culture. For parents already challenged by the demands of our multitasking world and stretched by stark economic realities, peer orientation further complicates the task of child rearing. Children were never meant by nature to be in a position where they are so dominant in influencing one another. This state of affairs may be the norm today, but it's neither natural nor healthy. Historically, it's a very new development due to economic and social influences prevalent since World War II, resulting in a deep undermining of adult connections. Okay, so the reality is our kids need to be attached to us. They need to be oriented to us. Not that they shouldn't have friends. That's not at all what Dr. Neufeld or Dr. Mate assert. But that the where they come for nurturing, where they come for emotional support needs to be first and foremost us as the parental units, as the parents. That's where they need to come first, because that's what's the most healthy, ideally, right? Not that all parents are perfect, but I would say the majority of parents are trying to do their best to rear their kids as best as they can. And we need to be the ones that they come for emotional nurturing. So our first reflection question is, how would you currently rate the relationship with each of your kids, and what needs to shift? Okay, again, how would you rate the relationship with each of your kids, and what needs to shift? And I put each of your kids because those of you who have more than one kid, one child might have a different relationship from one child to the next, right? You might be closer to one than you are to another, but it's important to figure out, like, where are you in relation to the kids? Do you feel like you've totally lost their hearts? Do you feel like you need to strengthen the relationship? Do you feel like, okay, the relationship with this child is good, but I want to keep it really strongly connected? I want you to just take a couple minutes and rate the relationship. So pull out a piece of paper and a pen, which I should have told you in the first place to do. So pull out a piece of paper and a pen. I'm just going to quickly turn on some music. And if you're watching this recording later, which it's live right this second, but if you're watching it later, put it on pause. And I want you to figure out where you are. Rate the relationship and the changes that need to happen with your children. Like, are there any strained, and if so, what's going on? Write those things down. Here we go. Just going to give you a couple minutes. Okay. What did you find as you were thinking about the relationship that you have with each of your kids and maybe even your spouse, right? Now this is super personal. Usually I'd have y'all share. However, this being very personal, I'll let you keep it. I do have this question. When you were thinking about it, were there any relationships that you were like, this relationship definitely needs work? Did anyone feel that? I know I every time I reflect on that, I'm like, okay, I need to fix this, or there's some things that need to change with this child because I've noticed that they've been down lately. So that's the first thing that we want to do is realize that, okay, so things might need to shift. We can change. That's the great news. Okay, so now let's go on to, whoops, it's not going to let me. Um, Dr. Neufeld says the ultimate goal in helping our children keep us close is to cultivate a profound intimacy that our children's peers cannot compete with. And so the next few things that we're going to do are discuss some like tangible, actionable things that we can do as parents to keep our kids close, or in the cases where we may have lost their hearts, to start to turn their hearts to us so that that orientation is to us, that they come to us for nurturing, they come to us when they're sad, that they come to us because that's the appropriate place to come. Okay, so there's going to three things that we're going to talk about to nurture the relationship, to reclaim their hearts. The first thing is actually these are the three things. Number one is to collect them, which we're going to talk about what exactly that is. Number two, give them something to hold on to. And number three, invite dependence, which we are always talking about. Like, we need our children to be independent. And although that's true, there are times that we need dependence on other people. And part of that is childhood and teenage years. We need that dependence on our family. And so we're going to talk about things that we can actually do. Okay, so first of all, collecting them. What does it mean to collect them? Well, we're going to get in their space in a happy way. I think, have you ever been to like a party or a gathering and you get there and maybe you see some people that you know and they look at you like you don't matter? And you go into this party, do you want to talk to them when they look at you like, oh, you're here? Or you feel contempt from them, or you feel just nothing from them. Like they don't really care that you're there. The question is, how do you feel about those people when they behave that way to you that are strangers or acquaintances or perhaps friends, but they're not super responsive to you? Versus, have you ever walked into a place or a party or you've gone to a soccer meeting and you see somebody and they are excited to see you, they're happy to see you. How does that feel different? I know for me, I feel a difference. Like, my husband's in real estate and I've gone to real estate events with him, and I'm always happy to see the people who want to see me versus those that look, that are not, maybe they're apathetic. Maybe it's not that they dislike me, but they're like, oh, but it means something to me when people are like, oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. And I know that sincerely they're happy to see me. I don't know any child or adult who doesn't love to be seen and people be happy to see them. Well, our kids are no different. And so we've got to, the very first thing, our first interaction with them after they've been separated from us, which we're going to talk about here in a second, it needs to be a collection where we see them, we look in their eyeballs, we hug them, and we say, how are you? I'm happy to see you. Oh, I love you. And it's got to come from the heart and the soul, as opposed to first thing that comes out of our mouth is, you didn't do the dishes, or you didn't mow the lawn, or your room's a mess, or I noticed you didn't brush your teeth. Like, those things cannot be the first things that come out of our mouth. The very first thing that needs to come out of our mouth, out of our souls, out of our being is, I see you and I'm grateful to see you. I love you and I'm looking at your eyeballs and my eyeballs are telling your eyeballs that I love you. That has to be the very first interaction our kids have from us. And we need to continue it throughout the day. So the question is, when do we collect them? And this surprised me as I was reading and learning about attachment. When do we collect them? We collect them anytime after any sort of separation. So when they've been gone away from us, if your kids are still in school, when the first thing after you see them, after you've picked them up or they've walked home or they've gotten home is, oh my gosh, I love you. I am so happy to see you. How was your day? I missed you while you're gone. Or if they've gone to if they're homeschooling, they've gone to an enrichment program. First thing out of our mouths has to be positive. It could be after they're waking up. Now, I shared this on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. My son Joshua said to me this summer, I realized I was doing this. Every morning I'd wake him up with, Joshua, you didn't do this. And one day he came down, and Joshua, you have to understand, Joshua is so tenderhearted. Like, he's got a big, big heart. He's not afraid to cry. He's not afraid to be emotional. He's not afraid to show his emotions. And he kind of got emotional. He's like, Mom, if you could wake me up being happy to see me over telling me that I messed up with not doing the dishes, or I left my clothes on the floor, or whatever, it would make my day go a lot better. And I love you so much. And I think that would help me a lot. And y'all, I stopped in my tracks. And I'm like, oh, here I've been learning all about collecting my kids. And the first thing that comes out of my mouth is negative for this very tenderhearted child, or to this tenderhearted child. So after waking up, we've been separated from them through the night. We have to collect them with, I love you. I'm so glad to see you. Let me hug you. Let me know you're important to me. After they've been playing video games, I thought that was interesting. After they've watched a show, again, anytime there's any amount of separation, even for a half an hour, we give them a hug. We let them know they're loved. And most especially, after there's been a broken connection, that you've gotten in an argument with them, they've got an argument with you, that after you see them again, after that broken connection, it's, I love you. You matter to me. You're important to me. I'm glad to see you. Even though we had a fight, you're still important to me. They have to be collected. Shoot, for that matter, our spouses have to be collected too. That is one piece of turning them and retaining their hearts. Okay, so in some cases, if you've got a child that you have a broken attachment relationship with, that you can reconnect, this is a starting point to reconnect. Or if you already have a great relationship, this is how we maintain a good relationship with the kids. Okay, so the next thing, the first interaction needs to be reestablishing a strong connection. So I want to take, this one's going to be a little bit of a shorter reflection. I'll stop the song about halfway through, but I want you to reflect in your journals, where have you struggled with this? And where are you, and I didn't put this part, but where are you doing really, really well? Like what areas are you struggling and what areas are you doing well? So I'm just going to give you time, a little bit of time to reflect here for just about a minute. Okay. All right, Ashley, I love this. I always try to greet my kids positively when I get home from work, but this gives me encouragement to find new ways to greet them. Thank you, Ashley, for sharing. And welcome, Ashley. Good to have you. So it's something that I think as parents, we have to be conscious about, because otherwise, I don't know about you, but I default to negative. That's my default emotion, is that seeing everything around the house that's not done, seeing, the child didn't brush their teeth this morning as I dropped them off somewhere and realized they didn't brush their teeth. We're working on it. That we have to be intentional about about that with our kids, and we have to realize that this is an area that we might need to improve on. Okay, so the first thing that we have to do, collect them every time after separation. That's the first thing. The next thing is we need to give them something to hold on to. Okay, something sometimes physically and sometimes emotionally, which I've got something, a free PDF download that I'm going to share in the chat at the end, so that y'all can download it. That's something physical that you can give to them to hold on to. But I'll share that at the end. So, what do I mean? Okay, so there's some specific ways that Dr. Neufeld and Dr. Mate say that children attach. Number one is by physical proximity. They need physical touch. They need snuggles and hugs. They need their back scratched. They need, some kids, especially, much like love languages, different kids are more prone to different ways of attachment over others. I've mentioned this before when it comes to like love languages. My children's all of them, their number one love language is physical touch, and my dead last love language is physical touch. And so I have to be intentional about scratching their backs and hugging them, because I'm not a super touchy person. And so I have to be conscious of that my kids are, and they need that. They need their back scratched. They need their faces tickled. When we read aloud together, Jacob yesterday was holding the book so that I could scratch and tickle both he and Kara's faces as we were reading. He's like, I will hold the book and tickle my face. Y'all, he's 13, and he still wants to be tickled. He still wants that affection. They need to feel like they belong, that there's some loyalty to them. There was a study done, and I because I'm just thinking about it, where they found that the most resilient children are those who are keenly aware of their family history, which is so random, because those children feel a strong sense of belonging. Like when they're like, oh, my great-great-grandmother did this. Like there's that sense of belonging, that they belong to something bigger than themselves. But even on a smaller scale, if you don't know your family history, the family, like, you belong in our family. Our family does these things, and you are part of it, and you matter to us. You belong in this family. Letting them know that they matter to us with facial expressions, with gentleness. Again, that going back to that collection, that when we see them first thing, that our faces, our souls, our energy shows that they matter and they're important to us more than anything else. More than a clean room, like they matter. Having the child feel seen and being known. Y'all, I had a total fail last night with Kara, who's 9. She came down and she's auditioning for a play, and she wanted to show me her audition piece. And I was so busy trying to get something done that I kept pushing her off. And finally she went upstairs. And she went into her room and she cried her eyes out. And then I came upstairs when I realized my failure. And she's like, do you not see me? And I'm like, I do see you. And so I had to apologize, because I broke that little child's heart. First, I kept pushing her off instead of just taking 2 minutes. That's all it would have taken for me to pause what I was doing and let her know she was more important than the thing that I was doing. And really, she was. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I've got this deadline of 2 minutes that I have to get this off or the world's going to come to an end. No, I could have paused for 2 minutes and listened to her do her audition piece and given her a hug and said, you did awesome. And instead, I made her feel not seen, that what I was working on was more important than her. Okay, so they have to be seen. They have to be known. Again, warmth and affection. Sameness. I thought this one was interesting. You can know when a child has an attachment to you in that they will want to be similar to you. They'll want to be the same as you. If we look back historically, we can see where a shift happened from parent orientation to peer orientation. We see that in the 1940s, when in the 40s, teenagers dressed and looked like their parents, right? The adults and the kids, you could see like, okay, we've got a child, and then they start dressing like an adult. And then we see the 1950s and we see a shift, and suddenly we have this advent of adolescent culture. And they have their own way of dressing. And they dress like each other in this newfound middle culture. Children who are attached to us seek to do things like we do them. I want to be like my dad. I'm going to do this like my dad. I want to do this like my mom. They may not necessarily want to dress just like us. I mean, sometimes they do. But they want to be same. They want to be similar. We want to look alike. We can see peer-oriented kids will sound like each other. Have you ever noticed when your child, I noticed this especially with my older kids, when they started sounding in the same cadence as their friends? I used to think, oh, isn't that cute? Now I'm like, oh no, that's a bad sign. If they're starting to emulate their friends and the cadence of how their friends talk or mannerisms of their friends, it's a sign of an attachment shifting to peer orientation. We want them to want to be the same as our family, as parents. And then we talked about staying connected when they're staying connected when they're apart. We're going to talk about here in a second. When they're apart from us, a way that we can help foster that connection is by giving them something physical for them to hold on to with us, right? There, it's not just an emotional as the other things are, but we're physically giving them something to hold on to, a piece of jewelry or like a locket. You think about Annie. Do you remember that the movie Annie? Annie held on to the locket that her parents had given her, and that meant something to her. She held on to it. It doesn't have to be jewelry. It can be a note, like a note in their lunch when they're gone from us, or a note, when they're going to be separated. It could be a recorded voice message. You send them a text if they are older and have a phone that you're like, hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm thinking about you. Maybe you have a special song that you share, and every time you get in the car, you listen to that song together, and then that song plays in their heads as they're away from you. That you've given them that special thing that they hold on to. It might be a text message. My husband sporadically will send the kids text and just say, hey, I really appreciate this about you. Hey, I was just thinking about this today. Hey, you did really great on XYZ. Or hey, I really had a fun time together when we went and got lunch, or whatever. Just a little text letting them know that you care about them. And then you could do special gifts when they're away. Again, not big things. When Katie was at a camp this summer, I made a little tiny gift for her each day. And they were not big things, y'all. I didn't buy a bunch of stuff, but I did do some little things, like little notes for her, and just little things for her. A pressed flower. I just want to let you know I miss you when you're gone, and I think about you. So as I've mentioned before, my mom passed away last month, and my dad's health is rapidly declining. And I was thinking about this. My dad, every Valentine's Day, my dad would buy a rose for each of us, and then a bouquet of roses for my mom, and then he'd buy us each a card, and like an expensive one, like not like a package of cards that he'd distribute. Like he'd buy us each a card, and then write in it and give it to us at dinner. And my mom would make a heart-shaped meatloaf with ketchup on top, which honestly, y'all, I hated. But it's nostalgic for me now. But again, I don't love meatloaf still, but it mattered to me that they would do that at Valentine's Day. But one year in particular, I think I was 15, and my dad knew that I was obsessed with Winnie the Pooh. I loved Winnie the Pooh. I wanted a Disney Winnie the Pooh shirt. I thought it was super cool. It was in the time in the 90s when like character t-shirts were just starting to become a thing. I knew I wanted a Marvin the Martian shirt, but I couldn't find one. But I loved Winnie the Pooh, and my dad got me a Winnie the Pooh and Piglet card, and inside it said, "I love you, Piglet," and then it said, "I love you, Pooh Bear," and then my dad signed it. Y'all, I am 48 years old, and I still have that card. It mattered to me so much, and now with my dad's health declining, it matters even more. Those types of things matter. Again, not expensive, Even just a little jotted note, it matters. Kara always brings up if she's got an enrichment program or something, she's always like, so are you going to put something in my lunch? Because it's kind of important that you do. I've mentioned this before. She's an incredibly emotionally intelligent child for being the age that she is. So if we could do that, give them something for us to hold on to. Okay, so reflection. Again, we're just going to do a 1-minute reflection. What are some things that you could do to stay connected to your kids? And what are some things, what are some ways that you know that your attachment matters to your kids? Is it that they like scratches and tickles, they like hugs, they want your time and attention? What are some of their, for lack of a better term, love languages? And then what are some ways you can stay connected? Again, we're only going to do 1 minute because of time. So let's start this. Here we go. Let's reflect. Okay. What are some things that you can do to stay connected? Give you a little bit of time to put it in the chat if you'd like to share. We've got a small class today. Okay, let's move on. The next thing that we're going to do is invite dependence. Now, we always hear like we want our kids to be independent. And that's true, right? We want them to grow up to be independent adults. But I think we push independence too hard, too young. We were meant to be our children's compass point. I want you to think about if you were going to a different country, you're visiting a different country, and you have a tour guide, and we're thinking about attachment, right? Let's think about this in terms of attachment. When you get to that new country and you don't speak the language, how much do you rely on the tour guide? Do you become attached to that tour guide? Do you get nervous if like, okay, they're like, okay, now go off on your own and come back at this time? Like, do you get a little bit nervous? Like, do you find yourself somewhat attached to that tour guide? Or perhaps you meet somebody in another country and you don't speak the language and they do. And suddenly you're like, oh no, I need to stay connected with you because you help guide me. They become a compass point, right? Our children are the same way, right? Their prefrontal cortexes are not developed. They don't get developed until about the age of 25. They need a compass point to help them navigate the world. And so some of the things that we do as parents are we help them navigate just basic day-to-day stuff. This is what we're doing this weekend. This is what's for dinner. Let me show you how this works. Oh, you're nervous? We see this with drivers. Oh, you're nervous. I'm going to drive with you. And I'm going to show you how. Our job is to help them navigate the world. This is how we do things. This is how it works. They need that. How many of you, like your kids are like, what's for dinner? What's for dinner? What are we doing for breakfast? What are we doing this weekend? I get that question all the time. What are we doing? They're not doing that just because they're doing that because they need us, to be their navigation. And sometimes it's annoying, but they need it, right? They need that navigation. They also look to us for their self-worth. And if they don't look to us for their self-worth and they're not attached to us, they're going to look to somebody else who is not going to give them the self-worth that they need and that reassurance. They need to hear, you are kind, you are smart, you are important. I see you. You matter to me. I had heard once that girls get their self-esteem from the relationship with their fathers. Yes, they get some from the relationship with their moms, but that relationship with the dads is incredibly important. And if they don't have a strong bond with the father, then they turn to get that attention from other sources. And so we as parents, again, we have to keep that being their navigation system. How they see themselves comes from us. Yeah, you're smart. And yes, you're beautiful. My daughter and I were shopping. I shared this on the podcast. My daughter and I were shopping. And we went to this dress store and she saw this really cute dress. And so she put it on. And she's a very mature 17-year-old girl, right? People tell me that all the time. They're like, she is so mature for her age. And she is, that's true. But she went and put on the dress, and I'm like, what do you think? And she's like, she looked in the mirror and she looked and she's like, I don't know. And then she turns to me and she said, Mama, what do you think? Do I look pretty? And I looked at her and I'm like, oh, of course you look beautiful in that dress. And she stopped and she got a big smile on her face and she said, yes, can I get this dress? You think I look beautiful? I'm like, yes, you do look beautiful. They still need that navigation. Even my, adult child called freaking out regarding his car. And he's like, Mom and Dad, I am at the car dealership and they said it's going to do this. And what do I do? Right? They needed us as navigation. What do I do? I don't know. I don't know what to do. And we are still, even into adulthood, their compass points. Even in our 50s, how many of us still look to our parents and go, oh, what do I do about this? What would you do about this? And there's, the other morning I woke up and I'm like, oh, I've got to call my mom and tell her I've got this idea and I want to know what she thinks about it. Only to go, what would she say? What would my mom say? Like we need to be their navigation. And that's a way that they attach to us when we are their navigation. Dr. Neufeld, I love this quote. The ultimate goal in helping our children keep us close is to cultivate a profound intimacy that our children's peers cannot compete with. That we keep that intimacy with our children. We have to make the relationship a priority. We have to. The time that we spend with them matters. And the fact that we spend time with them matters. I've loved the quote. So I don't even remember who said it, but how do children spell love? They spell it Time. That's how they spell love. Okay, so we need to help our children keep us close to them. Our tone matters, our compassion matters, our understanding matters, time with them matters, and they need to know that they matter to us. Okay, let's talk just a moment about structure and restrictions as we're wrapping up here. We need to establish order and structure to cultivate the relationship. What do I mean by that? There are times that are non-negotiables, and our kids need to know that they need to know that there are boundaries. I've told my kids, there is hard line, midnight is curfew for my older teenagers, period, the end. And I tell them why, because safety reasons, there's drunk drivers at night there, after midnight, you've got to be extra safe. But I also want you home. It matters that you're home. Boundaries are an important thing. But dinner time, these are non-negotiables. You're not, and this is up to you and your family, but these are some examples. Maybe it's dinner time. Maybe it's breakfast time. Maybe it's your scripture study if you're religious, or sacred text study. Maybe it's family outings. We're going on a family hike, and when we do family hikes, friends don't come. This is just for us. And these are non-negotiables. Reading aloud, our time reading aloud, sacred time, it's not a negotiable. Restrictions, and then we need to impose restrictions that weaken other connections. An example, we don't have phones on family outings, or we don't have phones at dinner time, or on at certain times, friends, Sunday nights, maybe you're Sunday nights is family time, the end. We don't have friends over. We don't, whatever those restrictions look like for your family, that helps enhance your family culture, and it keeps them attached to us. And it helps break any inappropriate attachments where they are oriented to peers. It helps break those attachments and reorient the children to the family, to the parents, where is the natural attachment should be. Okay, so then finally, I love that Dr. Neufeld, structures and restrictions safeguard the sacred. Okay, so final reflection for today, and then I've got the free download that I'm going to put in the chat. What are some things that you can do to invite dependence and keep them close? Again, we're just going to do 1 minute because of time here. What are some things that you can do to invite dependence on you and to keep them close to you? Okay. So, what are some things that you can do to invite dependents and keep them close? And again, usually I have y'all share the reflections because, but some of these reflections are more personal. If you'd like to share, you are welcome to. But if you want to keep them personal, I totally get it because this is a sensitive topic. Okay, with that, I want you to. I want to show you. Oops. Let's move it forward. I have a free download for you. I put these together. I found some really cute cards at Walmart like a couple years ago, and I used them all up and I loved them. And I went back to buy more, and they were like little, like they were like this big, you know? And I loved them. My kids loved them, but then I can't find them now. I don't know if they make them anymore. So I made my own, and I wanted to share them with you. In the chat, I put the link so you can download them through a PDF. Just print them out on there. Each one is 8.5 by 11. Just print them on cardstock, cut them, and then you can fold them so that they make little notes that you can give to your kid and your children. They're totally cheesy, but y'all, even the teenagers think that they're pretty funny. Like, you are totally incredible. This mama is proud you're my llama, right? I totally went cheese ball. And then on the right side, you can see, you amaze me. I believe in you. Always be kind. Here's some. So I just thought these would be fun. They're little, but that way you can have something physical to give to your kids or sneak in their backpacks when they're gone from you, or leave around the house. Maybe if you work, you put it on their mirror. Ways for them to remember that they've got something physical. That they've got that Winnie the Pooh card that matters to them. It's interesting. One really quick last thing. I've written some like letters to my kids over the years, and I found, like, as I've helped my kids clean out their rooms at different times, they don't throw those letters away. They keep them. These letters that I've written and my husband have written to our kids about how much we love them, what we see in them. Like, those letters matter to those kids, and they keep them. And so some might throw the cards away, but I wouldn't be surprised if your kids keep those little notes. And you don't have to use these, but this is just a fun little free download I want to give you. All right, let's talk next month. We're going to be doing the workshop. Will be on a different date next month and in November. It'll be the first week in November, which it'll be listed on the website. Next month, we're doing narration, dictation, and copy work. These are great exercises and things we can do with our kids to encourage writing. It's a nice, gentle way to introduce writing. If you don't want to use a curriculum, you can do narration, dictation, and copy work. And so we'll go over, like, this is how you do it. It's very how-to. I'll have you practice it so you can feel what it feels like. And then in November, we're going to be talking about a Christmas school for December, which y'all, I love Christmas so much. So I'm super excited about that. But I want to thank you so much for coming to the workshop. Make sure you click on the link so you can get your downloads. You are doing awesome, and I appreciate you coming and spending the hour with me. You matter to me. I pray for you. I think about you. With that, you are doing better than you think you are, and you got this. We'll talk later.